Also, Charlotte FC taking to the pitch against Orlando City. A huge game. Charlotte sitting right now in the 6th position in the Eastern Conference standings, right behind Nashville at 12 and 6 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw. So they've got 19 points, and things are getting ever more interesting as we make our way into the MLS season. Because of that, Jeb, you spoke to an amazing person from MLS. Talk to us a little bit about who you were speaking to and what about.
Yeah, so I had a really awesome opportunity just a few minutes ago to talk to Lori Lindsey. She's a former U.S. women's national team player.
Okay.
She'll actually be calling the game tonight. And, we had a briefing, but we really talked about how Charlotte FC started the season red hot. The bank is a fortress, but their away form has been it's left a lot to be desired. So now they go to Orlando, which very famously knocked us out of the playoffs last year, semi-controversially. And Dean Smith's been less than thrilled with the team's performances over these last few games. I think the team could have done a lot better. So it was very interesting getting her perspective on, she's obviously an expert on what the team could do better to pick up some points on the road in this crucial game.
Let's listen.
To get back on the right track.
Yeah, I think it's really going to be about defensively, not just the back line, but also whoever's playing in the midfield, typically Bronico, Westwood, just making sure that they don't get too stretched. They're asked to cover a lot of ground for the Charlotte team, and I think at times they get pulled all over the place, and that's what actually has caused some issues this season, is just not a ton of stability through the spine. So I think if they find some continuity in the midfield, they can screen the back line, then I think that only sets up the attack for more success. So something they're going to have to be aware of, especially against the attackers of Orlando tonight.
Perfect. And a big concern for the team right now has been Pep Biel getting healthy again. How important do you think he'll be for the offense to get going against, because this could be a shootout. You've got 2 high caliber offenses potentially. How important do you think that'll be to getting Liel Abada off the ground and all those attackers who really need to get hot?
Yeah, well, I actually think that is the key to this game for both teams, because if you look at Orlando as well, a number of quality attackers. So I actually think it's about who can get off on the front foot, create the flow early on in this game in terms of the attack. But to your point with Charlotte, I do think Pep Biel and Abada, Zaha, Ajiman, who's ever playing up top, it is about serving those wingers, and then they can look to combine. But I do think one of the things that will be so important is Pep Biel being and making runs out of the midfield, because that has been difficult for Orlando defensively. I mean, much like Charlotte as well. So there's there's a ton of similarities between these two teams, and I think if Pep Biel can make runs out of the midfield, get on the ball, especially right on top of the back line as well, for Orlando, he could cause a lot of problems then to be able to go himself or combine.
Fantastic. And I think a lot of people here are excited to see him back on the pitch. There were some concerns. You never know. And it looks like the team's been a big skid. What would a win or any kind of points out of today mean for Charlotte? I mean, this was a team that was close to the top of the standings for a while. This is a big, quote, kind of a rivalry game. We want to take this game. What would it mean kind of going forward? The schedule doesn't get any easier from here.
No, it doesn't. But I think there's 2 things. I mean, one, they're still in 6th place, but obviously there's pretty big gap there in terms of only a few points separating a lot of teams. So that is a bright spot. They should use that to their confidence that even though they're on a 3-game losing streak, they still are in 6th place and sitting above Orlando right now. But with only 1 win on the season, obviously we know in Major League Soccer it's difficult to pick up points on the road. But even a tie in this game would be massive, I think, in terms of confidence. Because if you do talk to Dean Smith, out of those 3 games that they've lost, he feels like really it was only the Columbus game that they shouldn't have won. So Nashville, New England, those are 2 teams that they should have taken points off of. And so I think if you're looking at that, you're saying, okay, our performances are actually better than the results we're getting. Now it's got to start to match. And so it would be huge to get that against Orlando, midweek game on the road, to even get some sort of result. So it's going to start defensively and then also consistently feeding your attackers so that you can set them up for success.
And just really quickly here, finally, one of the things Charlotte FC has done better than really any other team in the last year and changed, and so has been defense. You have Malanda, you have Kalina. They've been letting in more goals, it feels like, than last year. Should fans be concerned about some of those performances?
No, it kind of goes back to what I was saying. I wouldn't have sound alarm bells just yet. It's more about the continuity, I feel like, between the midfield and the back line. I mean, this is a Charlotte team. They want to attack quickly. They want to find the wingers first and foremost, and then they're going to go from there. And they can make the decisions if they're going to combine, if they're going to serve early balls in. But at times when you do attack quickly, that means you're out of shape defensively. And I think that's where it comes down to Westwood, Bronico, who's ever in the midfield, just making sure, one, that they're connected as a unit, but also connected to the back line. Because it has been some of the issue has been runs out of the midfield from opposition scoring goals. So it's just a full communication, not just the back line.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I know you have to get out of here. We seriously appreciate you taking the time and joining us here on WCNC Plus. Yeah, really, really appreciate Lori joining us. That was a really, really neat interview.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be a really, really fantastic game.
Yeah.
They're out in Orlando tonight. They come back on Saturday playing the Chicago Fire,
Right.
Who has had an interesting season, to say the least, coached by former U.S. men's national team coach
Right.
Greg Berhalter. So I think a little bit of a skid. I'm hoping they can pick up some points, or a point, really, today in Orlando. I think, just like she said, that'd be a dub. And then having them come back home and get back to form against Chicago. Very exciting time.
After that, then they have a home game with DC United, and that's next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Another Wednesday game. So
yeah, Wednesday games are back. This is a thing.
As we're heading into playoff, let's look at that, right? I mean, are we too far away to talk about that just yet?
No. And I think at any point, it's similar to basketball in where it stretches, right? Like because the season is a little bit longer. You look at runs of form, but if they can't get back on the right track, right now, yes, they're in 6th position, but they're only one loss away from being in 11th position. So, if they lose, other teams win. It's so compact right now.
Yeah.
Because one of the really neat things about the MLS is the parity of the entire league. Anyone can win on any given day. There aren't, even the team with Lionel Messi, Inter Miami, that's a team that has dropped a lot of points.
Yeah. Cincinnati's dominating.
Yeah, Cincinnati and Columbus, the two Ohio
Now, let's not forget, that team, before they were, I saw this in real time, before they were a professional team, they had, I won't call it a pro-am team, but it was one step below a professional league. And at that time, the USL League, at that time, that was the big talk in Cincinnati, was how do we get this team to become that next MLS powerhouse?
Well, they had a rough time. They started poorly.
They did. And then they finally got a state-of-the-art stadium built, which is fantastic. If you're ever in Cincinnati, go there. Obviously, they play Charlotte FC.
What a great facility. I've actually been, and it's a beautiful.
It's one of the best soccer stadiums in the world, in my opinion.
No, absolutely. I've been in many a few, and that one was the supporter section there was really, really.
It could use some air
neat.
Conditioning in some places.
Yeah, it can get hot. It was hot the day I was there. I was sweating.
But Cincinnati's got a powerhouse team, and I know Charlotte does too. But it remains to be seen where that goes. They're at the top of the league right now with 8 wins. So
yeah, it's all about Charlotte getting their stars to click. You know, I think you've got Wilfried Zaha, you've got Leo Abada, and you've got Pep Biel, who has, up until his injury, had been playing better than anyone really expected.
What about Patrick Agyemang?
He needs to get hot. Him and Toklamati, who's a young man they signed from Israel last season, have been battling for that star forward role.
Okay.
Neither of them have taken it yet, but I'm hoping tonight's game against kind of a leaky defense in Orlando City. Their offense is electric, but that defense is a really, really attractive defense if you're a forward on Charlotte to kind of maybe get a goal, get an assist, get on the stat sheet.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a really good game, and hopefully Charlotte can make something happen there.
Nice. All right. Well, hopefully, yes. Let's bring the crown home. Well, let's bring the win home to the crown, I should say.